Hey ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to 1.0 7 Days to Die and what to expect when it launches on console in the next month. Yes, if you somehow miss some of the dates and using info, I'm going to just rattle off some stuff now, but go and watch my previous video for more. Because today I do want to focus on the game itself and what I think. First 2 hours of playing it, my first impressions, how much of an improvement is it, some of the new stuff they've added, some of the stuff I feel like absolutely should be there, and give you a genuine, not kissing the devs at bums opinion about whether or not 7 Days to Die has been worth the wait of 11 years to reach 1.0. So let's rattle off some stats as hopefully you smash that like button. It's going to be $45 for everyone come when it releases on the 25th of July. It's going to be an experimental till then, and that begins on the 24th of June. This weekend streamers over 250 have been able to take part and basically show the game off. When it does launch on 25th, only Xbox Series XS and PlayStation 5 players will be able to play the same version that PC players are getting. If you own the game on PS4 or Xbox One, it's not getting any updates, it's never getting any new content, you will have to buy the new version. You're getting a 25% discount, which I will talk about a little bit at the end because I do think it's pretty scummy. Just a little FYI, Grounded recently launched with a 20% discount, and that game had been exclusive at Xbox and PC for about 3.5 years, so they managed to do a big discount and they've never sold the game before, so I am surprised it's that low. I was expecting it to be more of an upgrade price rather than just a small discount. But I know some console fans are really just desperate to play the new version, and they're going to be excited about doing crossplay with PC eventually when that gets added, because there are quite a few missing features from 1.0. And I do want to talk about that as well. Games that launch into 1.0 with features that they've promised and not delivering on them, does it really mean it can be a 1.0? Should we be paying more money for the game if you're brand new to trying 7 Days to Die? That's what we're going to discuss. So, first things first, there is a brand new character creation screen, whole new system, and it does look good. There are lots of presets, but you will still start off naked. This just gives you an idea of what they will look like in different types of clothing. You can of course create your own custom character as you've always done, but you have got all of these presets. There's over 30 of them, and if you just want to get straight into it, then yeah, it's a good way to start. The fidelity, the models, they definitely do look a lot better here. And there's lots of ways for you to go ahead and customize and add a little bit more details. So fair play, good stuff. You're going to look good as a zombie munches on your arm or leg in the game. That said, in most recent times, there are lots of games that have much deeper customization, and the options that you have are still pretty basic and limited comparatively to a lot of other games out there. I would give it a solid 7 out of 10 for character customization, but obviously a massive improvement on the older version. Not 100% sure exactly what it will mean, but there is a new wardrobe system coming into the game, which I'm guessing is going to be part of the DLC stuff that they're going to be adding in the future as well. There will be DLC skins that you'll be able to buy, and that is all apparently coming in Q4 2024. So moving on to the options, 7 Days to Die had again a few controls to control the world and change the game to either be easier or harder, and a lot of that has remained, but definitely a nice cleaner way of doing it with describing exactly what they all do. But it's worth noting there is no random gen for consoles at launch. When you buy it on the 25th of July, that is something that you won't have access to on Xbox or PlayStation. Again, that won't be appearing until Q4 2024. Likewise, crossplay won't be there at launch either. So I do struggle to see how maybe this has gone about. Like, why are you launching a 1.0 when maybe some big core features aren't implemented? But it is quite taxing, giving them a bit of a break. Organising crossplay and getting it sorted can be something quite challenging. But the worry would be that they just decide to suddenly turn around and say, oh no, we can't do crossplay anymore. But as far as we know, they've guaranteed that it's going to happen, and so that will happen towards the end of the year. But back to the options, there are a ton of them, absolutely. Obviously graphical on PC is going to be a lot more. You won't see half of this, I'm sure, on Xbox or PlayStation. But I do hope there are a few that can get added if you want more just performance, or you want to try and make things looking better on your PS5 or Series X or S. On PC, you're going to be able to have up to 16 players playing on a server at any one time. And again, as far as I know, that should be the case for consoles, but that's something we're going to have to get confirmed again. It's much easier now to enable just creative mode if that's something you want to play around with. with maybe the difference being that you'll be able to spawn in a lot more items now than previously just being maybe in God mode or stuff. It's been a while, I ain't gonna lie, since I messed around with it, especially on Xbox or PlayStation. So yeah, nice and clear, but apparently they are also going to be upgrading the main menu settings in the future too. Loading in was pretty quick, again something I'll have to obviously check in the future on either smaller systems or consoles, and it's 7 Days to Die. Looking a little bit more crisper for sure. I've recently just dived back into the game after not playing for years because I boycotted the game because of all the problems with console. But having played it, like I said recently with my pal Raz Clark, I can see the differences. It's definitely a lot more crisp and clear. Models are more defined, there's definitely a lot more shadow. Would I say it's a massive technical upgrade on what we've seen before? Probably not. The lighting looks good, and I think it's just part of 7 Days to Die charm. Any game that started out in 2013 and has had the updates it's had is never going to maybe win the prizes for the best or most realistic looking game. I like games like Valheim because of the way they look, different art style, so I can appreciate that. However, 7 Days to Die has made more of an effort with obviously the 1.0. Lots of items, it just looks spruced up. A lot of this has been occurring in previous updates, alphas, but yeah, talking about the differences between maybe the first version that you'll play on console and this version, it's definitely clear that this game is looking a lot better. There's a brand new challenge system which replaces a lot of the first generic sort of tutorial quests, making things a lot clearer. You basically have to redeem your experience when you complete something. So go and harvest some wood, make your own bed, build your own base first, clothe yourself in items. It's all rather rudimentary, and it will take you through the first steps as you try and find a trader. Skill system is the same, it's been on PC for a while now. Things that you do will build up your XP, and then eventually you'll be able to get points to spend on different attributes. You can still find magazines all around the world that will give you some of them skills or attributes, certain levels of them earlier. Now, according to the roadmap, there's been substantially a lot of improvements to the gamepad and controller. The shortcuts are there for sure, some of them, but I was disappointed to see still quite a bit of jank in terms of moving around the menus using a controller. If they've said that there were updated controller support, maybe it means to do with making things maybe vibrate more or being more responsive. For sure, that could be the case. But in terms of actually moving around the menus, yeah, disappointing that there isn't or hasn't been more easier ways to navigate stuff. And apparently they're going to be rehauling that as part of their main menu upgrades in Q2 2025. So the core loops are 7 Days to Die. Yes, it's going to be you trying to survive against zombies, gathering resources, punching fibres, getting wood from trees. You know the coup. There are some nicer effects now that show stuff off, like this, where to go and get the resources as part of this quest. And it definitely feels a bit less janky. I would still say though, it doesn't necessarily grab out at me as being like the most responsive or best looking UI I've seen. They've got a radial wheel now that you can use to go ahead and access certain parts of the main menus, and it gives you shortcuts to go and access either the map or your crafting, inventory or quests. So all good stuff, but yeah, I feel like the hotbar at the bottom is still pretty long with how many slots there are, and it still would have been better to have maybe a radial dial so you can switch over to other stuff a little bit quicker too. Again, modern games nowadays have either both options, so if they are going to be improving things in the future, it's definitely something I want to see added. Quick slots for weapons and gear, like I said, being able to activate it using a radial dial is, I think, a winner. In terms of models and art and stuff, yeah, some of it looks good, although there are still some little discrepancies. Even though you're using tins of food, it still just looks like pieces of meat when you go to eat a lot of it. And I'm being a little bit nitpicky here, but you know, I'm trying to show how much progress has maybe been made and stuff that hasn't. And there's not really that much in-depth animations for some of that stuff. Like, I cannot really differentiate too much in the basic versions of 7 Days to Die and what you're used to playing with the new version. Like, it is the same game, the same UI, the same damage types. You are going to be just bashing away at stuff to try and get some of the components or resources to craft into better gear eventually. So there's a new gore system and basically dismemberment. You can take off zombies' legs more reliably, shoot them off and they'll start crawling more and actually take that physical damage, which could be interesting to see. I'm guessing you need certain high level weapons or to really be focused on just one body part for it to really take off. You've always been able to decapitate lots of zombos, but yeah, apparently it's a new system in play. Certainly some of the VFX look a bit more horrific and colourful for sure. So an improvement, but the janky combat is still there. Nothing has improved this. you're still going to be hitting and seemingly not connecting with certain body parts, making them respond in certain ways. So I definitely want to see what it's like when I get more powerful weapons and maybe aim particularly for like legs and arms. So there's over like 100 new points of interest or something like that, where they've added new ways to basically go and explore, and they've given a better heads up about what to expect. They've also nerfed and changed a lot of the spawns of some of the zombies and monsters that you'll find. And again, there's apparently new versions of a lot of the zombies with different outfits and stuff. So I'm looking forward to exploring more and seeing a lot more of them changes and differences. But it is still pretty basic, and the combat that you'll find in the variants of the zombies are not that much different from what you've seen before. At night, zombies will run unless you change settings, and various other zombies will always maybe be a bit tougher than others. 7 Days to Die at its core has always been the more grown-up version of Minecraft. It hasn't evolved into some really slick action RPG survival game. The combat is probably still one of the weakest points of the game. It might marginally get better once you get all your guns and start setting up for your actual base defences, but in terms of melee and stuff in the early days, it all feels rather just a bit basic. They've also made improvements to the edge of the world, so you won't necessarily just go into a radiation zone now. It'll be more foggy and you'll take more damage over time before eventually you get to the borders. Better implementation of some of the biomes and just various terrain options. But when you boil it down, the game hasn't much changed in the last couple of years. Significant updates before have definitely added a lot of new content and new pieces, and this update definitely adds some new features. But not enough to turn the game into something it wasn't before, which I guess a lot of people don't want that to happen. You want it to be the game that you've grown up watching or playing on your console that hopefully now is getting that update just to add a bit of polish, right? But I do question the stuff that has been left out, and this is where I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. Not here at launch, but coming in quarter 2024. Weather systems, biome progression, overhauls. That seems like a pretty big deal. Why wouldn't you have that as part of your 1.0? The crossplay in random gen, I kind of get, as I said, that could be something quite complicated, and I can see why that hasn't been added for consoles or PCs to play with each other straight away. But some of the other stuff, I do wonder why the hell it's not here. Wardrobe system, again, that's kind of, I'm guessing, clothing to basically be able to maybe transmogrify and stuff like that. And I might have some of this wrong, so do go ahead and correct me. But even something as simple as spawning near a friend, you're not going to get to the end of the year. They're adding Twitch drops and all the other stuff, and that apparently is taking focus of a lot of other stuff. They are going to be adding additional zombie stages, so that could be pretty cool. But otherwise, it's going to be quarter 2 2025, so around March to maybe April, May, before the game receives bandits. One of the core features they spoke about for years and years that would be coming with the gold version or the 1.0 version of 7 Days to Die. They're going to be adding a new event system and new quest type in that time as well. Like, what the fuck have you been doing for all these years that you've been speaking about these features, speaking about bandits coming? And I think it has been delayed a couple of times. It was meant to have appeared in previous updates for it to still not be here when you go into 1.0. And then by the end of 2025, so like maybe October through to December, that's when they're going to be adding a story mode, a trader overhaul, Steam Workshop support, and new quest types. So right at the bag, Steam support on mods usually means be lucky console kids, you're not going to be able to have mods on your consoles. And before anyone starts, there are lots of services now where you can actually have mods. You can do it like on Ark, where they've got Overwolf, or you can do it with mod.io that other games like Mud Spinners have used and others. But no, they're still just thinking of being a PC only game because 7 Days to Die has always been more of that focus, even though the upcoming release on console will be the 3rd time that the game has been released on console systems. Some new quest types I can understand not being a priority. Trader overhaul, yeah, maybe, just about. But a story mode? Again, where are these features? Why are they not part of 1.0? Why are people having to wait a year and a half to receive the full game? In their defense, to quote another game, Rust launched out of early access, and it had a bunch of stuff that they did launch with, but it wasn't like a big deal. They just came out of nowhere and went, you know what, we're going 1.0. And they explicitly stated that they would keep updating the game. They've got lots of content plans, and of course they did. They smashed it, and they've grown ever since. Huge amount of numbers, becoming the #1 most played survival game, overtaking Ark. But they'd been relatively short and brief in their development time, and they've kind of cut their ropes and teeth in early access, making mistakes but getting it pretty much out of the system by 1.0 so they could deliver content every single month. So I do think it's a bit of a piss take charging $45, which might not seem like a lot to people that really love the game, but you're still not getting every part of it, and you're getting these vague windows of when this content might appear, and some of it won't be for another year and a half. That says to me they had to rush the 1.0 because they're running out of money. They've got their other games they're licensed out to, like the Blood Moon game and reportedly another game that they've been working on internally. And yeah, I do think it's just a bit of a piss take. The Fun Pimps don't have the best reputations in terms of updates hitting, in terms of planning and putting stuff to action and making sure that they're working on feedback from players and fans. They neglected console fans for way too long, and even though it wasn't originally their fault about their publisher going out of business for the console version, over the course of 7 years they had opportunities to improve things or do better. And even while they said they would remain focused on just PC, it still has come across a bit like pulling teeth with only one major content update every year or year and a bit. Also, don't really like the way they do these streamer events. I think it should be open for everyone when you've got early access titles. No one should get early access beyond early access. And especially 1.0 content. That's when you want the whole player base to be basically surprised and not have it all ruined for the next month. Of course, it will be open to people who want to play on the experimental branches and stuff, but a lot of people still don't mess around with that. So it does feel like a bit of a soft 1.0 launch. There are enough new features here to get people excited about playing. Kind of amazed though they don't have a third person option. I know it's meant to be like a survival horror game, so the idea that if you had third person you'd be able to see the Zeds attack you and stuff. But the amount of hate that games lately did have when they got revealed as only being first person, yeah, it's a bit of a surprise. The polish that they've done to certain systems absolutely looks a lot better, but it's not revolutionary. It's not making the game out of this world something new or something really so good that you cannot miss it. It is still very much 7 Days to Die as it's always been. A great concept following the footsteps of games like DayZ and Minecraft, but made with just a bit too much jank over too long a time. I don't want to go too deep. I'm going to save that for more of a proper review once I get to about 50 hours. Like I said, I want to explore all the new points of interest. I want to see how the mid and late game stages go, and of course, obviously, base defences. But I do think it's important to acknowledge the stuff that's gone around the game, especially in its first impressions, that I'm hoping a lot of console fans might reference when it comes to actually buying it. Of course, this isn't console footage. I can't guarantee it's going to look like this when it does arrive. But this is obviously the first chance that you're going to see of what the final version will look like instead of just being previous alphas. Everyone has 7 Days to Die in their Steam library, it seems. It's going to be popular. There's going to be thousands, maybe even 100,000 plus players actually playing the game over the next few weeks. And despite its jank, it has got charm and it has got a bit of addictiveness in playing for sure. I just kind of wish that some of the features that they'd spoken about would have been there from the start. Things like weather and biome changes and stuff feel like they absolutely should have been there with the 1.0, and other stuff I can maybe live without, like bandits for sure. But that's just my first impressions. Obviously, like I said, big review coming in. You might even see some Let's Play videos and guides from me once I get more time into it. But that, in a nutshell, is my first 2 hours experience with 7 Days to Die. Hopefully you'll be enjoying lots of content from the weekend. And as always, giving you my honest opinion about survival games. Make sure you're subscribed. I'll see you ratbags soon.